Welcome to Founders Marketing Compass. My name is Etgar Shpivak. With my experience as a co-founder and as a marketer, I'm interviewing founders and investors to learn how to build healthy, lasting relationships between startup founders and their marketing teams. Today, I'm hosting one of the first investors who believed in me, Eran Savir. Hello, Eran. How are you?
Hi, Edgar. Good morning, and thank you for having me.
This is definitely my pleasure, and I'm waiting a long time to host you. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Likewise. So thank you again.
So happy if you can share our listeners with your personal story and with what you're doing today.
Sure. I come with a technical background. I used to know how to write code many years ago. I guess I taught myself programming back then at the age of 10. And then, fast forward, before I became an investor, I was a founder. I founded three startups, two of which were acquired. And then I joined the company in the space of advertising technology and founded and managed the corporate VC, invested in you and in a few other startups. We did outstanding results with that fund. And then after 4 years with that fund, we launched our second fund, which was a publicly traded company in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. That's how we raised money through an IPO. That was summer of 21, and then we completed the deployment of the funds at the end of 22. I was a co-founder and CEO of that company. I stepped down, became the chairman, and launched my third fund. And we're focusing on investing in AI, digital, and commerce seed stage, or in other words, we've been around investing in internet startups, specifically looking for those who have the potential to be a fast-growing internet company.
So for our listeners that want to raise money, I will say personally that I met with hundreds of investors, and some of them have bigger yield, some have a smaller yield, but I haven't met a lot of people or a big person such as you and the team that you're working. And I can vouch this from firsthand, from the way that you work with me down the road in the happy days, in the last happy days, and again to say you thank you so much for what you did.
Sure. Thank you very much for that. And I think that, building a startup is so difficult, and more than that, succeeding with a startup is very difficult. You definitely need to pick the right people to join your journey. And in most cases, it's a struggle. And I think that whoever was a founder understands how difficult it is and what it actually means to succeed. So thank you for the kind words.
So let's start. In your opinion, what makes startup marketing team a successful team?
So I think it very much depends, I guess, on the stage. So my expertise is in the kind of early stage, seed stage. That's kind of my sweet spot. I think that probably one of the most important things that I've seen that works is that first of all, do a lot of experiments. When you start, you don't really know what will work. In fact, in most cases, you don't really know who's your ICP. So you kind of you need to try so many things to see what works, but and you also need to do a lot of experiments, like small experiments. Start with like guerrilla tasks. Go through people that you are trying to find the first people that you can speak to, like your customers. And marketing sometimes is like not necessarily mass marketing. Sometimes it's just one-to-one marketing that also helps. I think that in essence, do a lot of experiments and measure. Do a small test, measure. If it works, continue. If not, switch to something else or try to find what's not working and kind of reinvent this. But you need to be constantly trying. Even if you find things that work, it will not work forever. So you kind of need to keep on reinventing this like every day.
I know that you're seeing hundreds of startups, at least a month. I don't know if in a week, but at least in a month. And you're constantly seeing a lot of metrics. What are the most important marketing metrics for you when you're assessing if you want to invest in a startup?
So it's a good question. I'm looking at internet startups, both B2B and B2C, and I'm actually quite amazed to see founders that don't really know what metrics to look at, and they don't actually look at any metrics with regards to marketing. So if you'd ask them like, what's your revenue or how many customers do you have, they actually, of course, know this number. But if you ask them about what's the customer acquisition cost, what's the lifetime value, what's your conversion rate from different channels, they don't know these numbers, and that's quite surprising for me, because for me that's kind of the basics, right? You need to make sure at the end of the day, building a successful business means that the column of the income is going to be higher than the column of the expense. So you need to be on top of these numbers. For starters, that's kind of, these are the, I guess, the most important ones, like customer acquisition cost, lifetime value, conversion rates from channels.
When we seeing the ad platforms like Facebook, like Google, making a lot of changes in their ad platform, making it dramatically hard for the media buying side to understand which one of the clients is a new client and which one of the clients is like some of your low-hanging fruit, someone who search your brand and so on. We see it with the Facebook campaigns, we see it with the Google PMax campaign, and it's making lots of problem for founders, especially the one that don't have this marketing background and think on incremental sales, to actually come and to report you on the real metrics. How do you, as an investor, you come and you see those reports that you ask quarterly? I feel them myself. And how do you make sure that what you're seeing is real cost of the new customer acquisition cost, and not something which is a blend that made by Google or Facebook?
So that's a good one. When I look at teams that I guess I kind of divide the world into two different groups, like those B2B companies and B2C companies. I think, for starters, B2C teams need to have like a co-founder that knows how to do user acquisition. Like he needs to be like a hands-on person with marketing, with user acquisition. And I guess in order to be successful, both B2B and B2C teams need to have a founder that knows how to do marketing. The first sales will be done by a founder. In my opinion, the first marketing activities will be done by a founder. So that is the person who will kind of think of new ideas, invent, the same like in any other aspect of the startup. You need to invent, and I guess you need to have like a founder that knows marketing. And then in most cases, let's see, in the early stages of the startup, I would see a startup that relies on, if we're talking about paid user acquisition, in most cases they will just be relying on one channel, like Facebook ads. So it's relatively easy for them. It's not scalable, of course. It's risky because things can happen, but it's easier for them to manage. It's also easier for me to have a look at and see. By default, I don't think that I need to log into their platforms and look at their numbers, in Facebook or in Google. But I will ask later, at the later stage in the due diligence, to look at the numbers in an Excel. And then things need to make sense. But I'm not going to, in most cases, I will not look at the campaign level. Is this campaign profitable? Did you stop it on time? Did you put a pixel in the right place? That's not my goal. And I think that as an investor, I need to pick the teams knows how to run this. And I'm just joining their ride. I shouldn't be the expert in the team with regards to how to do marketing. Like, they need to be the experts. Of course, I have some knowledge and experience, but at the end of the day, every startup is a little bit different. The founders are the experts.
What is the biggest marketing mistakes that you see startup doing often?
I think that oftentimes you'll see that people are doing different activities, like marketing activities. They don't mark them, even in the way they look at the different activities that they do. They don't mark them as marketing activities, and as a result, they don't track and measure the relevance to the business goals and the effect on the KPIs. So, for example, every social post that a founder does is a marketing activity, both on your personal profile, but of course on the company's profile. Every time you go on stage, every meetup you go to, as an audience, of course, as a speaker, every webinar, everything that you do is a marketing activity, and you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I spending the time on this? What am I trying to achieve? And did I manage to achieve it? And I think that it's obvious that when you run a campaign on Google and you spend money, you will measure and track and try to see the performance. But in many other activities, in fact, most of the money that we spend on in the early days, and most of the time that we spend in the early days on marketing, is not tracked and not measured. And that is kind of a waste of time and money. And that most founders actually don't track everything, and in fact don't act in correlation with some KPIs that needs to be met. Right? So you need to ask yourself every time you do something, why are you doing? We have so many things to do as founders, but so much, but not enough time. So every time you do something, you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? And what KPI or goal is this serving? And then afterwards, come back and see, did I manage to achieve this? This will help me to avoid time wasting, money wasting tasks, but also improve for the next time.
And if I'll take the opposite, if we talk about mistakes, can you give me an example for a startup that really impressed you with his marketing approach?
One of my portfolio companies, it's a company in the space of D2C e-commerce, and it's called Thunder Outfit. Super successful, growing super fast, an amazing Felix and the team. So we all kind of grew up with the perception that marketing is everything, and the winner is going to be the team who has the best marketing efforts and activities, and the product is like second or third. I spoke about this with the Felix session as the founder of Thunder Outfit. Very, very personal. I really like and love, and super experienced. And we both shared the same initial thought about marketing is the king, and if you do great marketing, you will win. And then we realized that, based on their experience, that marketing is also having a great product. And that comes from like a different world, right? There is a saying like, build a great product and they will come. But then I guess it's a combination. You can't just rely on your marketing and have like a shitty product. And you cannot rely on your product and have like a shitty marketing. It needs to go hand in hand. For example, one of the things that they did with Under Outfit was they had like they kind of reinvented the return policy, which is both like marketing and product, right? I guess like experience. Buy the product, get it delivered to your home, try it at home. Their product is underwear for women in the US, like bras and fitters and so on. Buy it online, get it to your home, use it, wash it, reuse it for up to 6 months. 6 months. And then if you don't like it, return it. So I guess it's a combination of, and that created, by the way, an amazing buzz, an amazing stickiness, and of course, it became very viral because it's so outstanding to have such a kind of return, and it's just a return policy. But this is like a marketing campaign that says we trust our product so much that we know that even after 6 months, you will not want to return it. You will want to keep it and continue buying more products. So the combination of, having something real, like the real story, the real marketing, and a product that is integrated with that, and also being able to properly, I'd say, market it, tell the story, explain that we're so confident about our product that this is our marketing. Buy it, use it, keep on using it, and that for me was a surprise. It changed things that we looked at the world differently before that experiment. Both me and the founders, I guess. So that was a surprise, and this is something I took with me. That I guess there needs to be a combination of things, and of course, a lot of luck and hard work. Once again, measure, like, how did they get to 6 months return policy? How did they get to these things? Try and measure and get feedback and improve and measure again and try again.
And what is the most surprising lesson that you learned as an investor?
I think that we all know, I guess we all know as founders, it's kind of we know that when you start with your startup, like the initial idea would go through few pivots. Like the average is 2.5 pivots per successful startup. So I guess some startups do more. The pivot, we think about the pivot as like this major thing that happens. Okay, we tried to build a car, it didn't work. Let's sell shoes. No, the pivot is sometimes is incremental, or in most cases is incremental, and it involves so many activities that needs to be done that oftentimes come from the market, and the market equals marketing. So, you start by imagining who is your ICP, if hopefully you've done that research before starting, and then you realize it doesn't work. Like, either customers don't get it, it's because you don't tell the story right, or because they have no problem, they don't really care, whatever. You need to pivot. Sometimes it's a small pivot, and sometimes it's a major pivot. Oftentimes it's an ongoing cycle. And that is something that I think only if you look like at the retrospective on your startup, my startups as an investor, I see that this is a constant process. I guess you could say this is kind of version 1, 1.1, 1.2. At a certain point, it became version 2, and then we can say we pivoted from 1 to 2. But I guess it's more of an incremental, ongoing work that needs to be done. And I guess most people don't really realize that they are constantly pivoting, which is a good thing, right? You need to constantly be aware of the activities that you're doing and kind of tune and retune all your activities, specifically with regards to marketing. It's super important, or else you kind of get to a plateau.
Talking about companies like those round A companies, the more mature companies, founders already have their marketing team. They hire their VP marketing, their head of growth, head of demand generation. Everyone have a different name. And before I started this podcast, I talked with many people to build a discovery process for myself. And we saw that a lot of founders struggling with managing those teams. From your perspective, that saw dozens of mature startups, some of yours, some are not. What is the one mistake founders doing when they're managing their team, their marketing team?
So I guess management of your teams is probably the biggest problem with the team. So it's better to have like a founder that knows marketing, but then when you delegate, you need to set goals, you need to set KPIs, you need to set the vision, but the experiments needs to be done by the team. So if you have a team, let them work. Don't manage them, because there are so many things to do as a founder, and one of them is not to start and stop the campaign on time. So I guess the goal as a founder for the marketing is to be the visionary, to remove obstacles from the way, to let them experiment, allow them to make mistakes, because that's the way you kind of learn new things. You can by mistake find something that works even better, but don't micromanagement your team. I guess that's kind of a general comment. I guess as a manager, or someone who managed people, but that's, I guess, also a thing of a personal character. I think that it's always better to give people like your vision, the way you see things, and let them play, let them have their time and their opportunity to fail, and of course to win.
So, for those founders who are listening to us, what is, or founders to be, what is a common misconception about running a startup you would like to debunk?
Becoming successful with your startup is very, very difficult. In most cases, you fail. In fact, even if you, at the end of the journey, you were a successful founder, most of your experience has been like an experience of failure. When you raise funds, most of the investors will say no. When you approach customers, I guess at least at the beginning, many customers will say no. Customers will churn. Customers, you give them for free, they will not want to convert to pay, and you have so many challenges. And in most cases, it's kind of an experience of a failure. But I guess perseverance is super important. Just keep on going. And so people don't really know that, and it's easy to look at the newspapers and see the headlines of those smiling, super successful founders. But even those successful founders are experiencing, most of their experience is a failure experience. You just need to make sure you look at the successes and don't count the failure. You need to be aware of the failures and learn from them, but don't let it weaken you.
If I go back to Eran on his first day as an investor, and with all your knowledge now, what one advice would you give to that Eran?
So that's a good question. I actually remember my first meeting with the first startup as an investor. That was just as a quick reminder. I was a founder 3 times and advised multiple teams along the way. I guess tens, if not hundreds, of teams. However, as an investor, you look at everything a bit differently. And so today, I look at things a little bit more in a more structured way, I guess. So I guess as an investor, we all help each other, advise each other, give tips to each other. As an investor, specifically as a kind of a professional investor, meaning as a VC fund, you need to think about this in a more structured manner. So always start with let's spend some time talking about the problem. And for us, as a founder, you kind of fall in love. Yes, I have this idea, let's do this and let's do that. And oftentimes I meet teams that they haven't spent time articulating the problem. And that is so important because you need to make sure that this problem is like, painful enough people have it. If you identify the problem, it's easier for you to communicate the solution, right? To find your customers, to speak their language. And so today, this is what I do. This is also my best advice to everyone. Just make sure you understand the problem very, very well before you build a solution. That oftentimes saves a lot of time to the startup, and of course to your investors. Like the best decks would start with a very good explanation, a short explanation of the problem. And oftentimes that would make the difference for me.
And for the last question, which question did I needed to ask, but I didn't?
I guess one of the most challenging things, or maybe the question is, how, as a founder, how do you balance between the short-term activities or tasks that you need to do and the long-term things that you need to achieve? And so it's how do you actually do that? I actually learned that only on my third startup. I would say that I mastered it, but I paid attention to it only then. And it actually goes back to my previous answer. Like you need to articulate the problem, and then you would understand the solution, and then you need to define, where are you heading? There needs to be some sort of a lighthouse that you are going in that direction, and then everything that you do needs to be taking you in that direction. And then you need to do like a combination of things. You can't do just tactical things. However, you cannot do just those strategic things. I used to kind of end every day asking myself, okay, what did I do today to take me 1 or 2 steps forward? Or did I go 1 or 2 or 3 steps forward today, and in one direction? And how did I do that so that I can improve for tomorrow? So I actually did that every day, the end of every day. And I think that this is a challenge that every founder needs to be aware of, and you need to allocate your time accordingly. And I guess it changes over time. I mean, sometimes you spend more time on your strategy and less on tactics, and vice versa. When you prepare to a conference, spend more time on tactics. But then when you plan which conferences you should go to, you should ask yourself, why are you going to conferences at all? All right, so there's more of a strategy. So that's, I guess, a very important thing that the founders needs to be aware of.
Eran, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Edgar. It was very fun. Bye.
Bye-bye. Au revoir. Cut.